They're contested by one other team. Below them, still Kanata and Agers. You saw that pan view, Clicks and Epic Whale not too far behind. You can see Rokane and Vert, instead of contesting the actual capture point, they're just content with that elevation because they need the Surge.
Surge is much more important right now when you're only 115 damage above.
Capture point
spot to be in is around 200 or 300. Subscript and Flutto, they're gonna have to fight though, 10 above. So they'll either be looking for some quick picks, and if they don't see anything, well, the next target is the team up top.
And you can see what they did here. Since they know they can't get the house that's on top of Rift Island, next best thing, just build towards the end. Make sure you cover your tops, and then you just kind of peek, exactly like how they're doing. But there's less view for Subscript and Flutto because now they only get this one angle compared to being able to see all across the map. But with this elevation, you have to be able to make shots like this count.
Yeah, you got someone sitting out in the open right there, willing to exchange with you. I think both sides are pretty desperate right now. Meanwhile, on the other side, Paper and Muzz here, just outside the compound. Also close to the Rift Island, not looking up, not doing anything too dangerous here. They have nothing to worry about. Noxie, on the other hand, and D-Roller. 3 eliminations. They're looking to just turn online here. They want points. They want to take battles, not because they need to, but because they want the additional elimination points here.
That's what's so important, especially depending on how you finished or where you even finished on that leaderboard in day one. You don't have to make all the bold moves to gather all those points and kind of catch up here in the first. You just have to be able to make strides, progression throughout each and every game. Azuka just mammoth tagged up outside of zone. Luckily for them, they don't have to worry about Surge, so they can kind of focus on how they're going to get in zone, especially now that they know there's a few teams in front of them.
I was more curious as to why he didn't pop the minis there. He had the team behind him, and instead opts to just let the Slurp Juice do its thing. Could have been very, very risky, but we are only in a 1-tick, so things are going to work itself out here. Possess and Zukos have a bit of a run to make. Smite on the heels, D-Roller right behind him. Let's jump on over to the Mega City here, where we tune in with Batman, Booga, and Rapid. This wasn't really working for them playing this high ground yesterday, but it seems like things are going a little bit better. Could be the zone potentially playing to their favor right now.
They have the luxury of being able to split up as well. They probably saw their counterparts that also land towards Mega City begin to rotate out. His job piece, and God did 1 below the damage threshold. For them, it can't be too much of a worry, but they need to start getting proactive instead of just out healing it, because they're going to put themselves in a position later on in the game where they need a refresh. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's just the Storm Surge really just kind of eating them up right now, out of minis. Job piece just has to really think about something here, but he's just content. He thinks out healing it is going to be the play, but there's shots coming in from Baka and Pars as well. They don't want to let this go easy.
He just needs a single tag. Not anymore. Things start to,
I mean, yeah, with the
cascade away.
Can possibly look towards the island in the distance right now. Nothing.
Oh no!
Seemingly worked.
Shot. Oh. Both sides. We haven't seen a single team hit a long-range mammoth on NA today.
Yep. I think a lot of players are adapting, realizing when to peak, when not to peak. But I think eventually somebody will slip up, as God did, to still 229 below that damage threshold. Turned off momentarily, but if he doesn't figure out what his plan is going to be, he's just falling ever increasingly below that damage threshold. There's definitely not enough on that med mist to out heal it.
There it is. The damage starts to pick back up. We're sitting the Minished here on the outskirts of the zone. It's going to be a super long rotate. The zone's actually started to head east and somewhat north, so most of the lobby did not pull the zone here at all. Zone has doubled down to the east here. A very common trend we're seeing right now is the zones pull extremely far. You have to almost expect them at this point to continue to drag their way out. Oh, Sid and Minish end up rolling up on someone. It seems like Jylix is going to be the victim of choice. Little 100 above the Surge. Okay, so they have something to bounce back into, something to work with right now. That's the least of their worries. As we said, they are going to have to move here shortly.
Yeah, something to start to build that confidence. As we tune in to Rise and Bylod just trading shots, more than half their shield being depleted. Stack in Redux, here's this action. They want a third party. Down goes Npen. Bylod stuck by himself. almost gets the slurp off in time, but that's Casker's and Revive. Just go ahead and clean that one up, make it easier for both of these teams to try to survive. And as soon as that happens, you see Stacky and Redux. They said, I'm time to rotate. I don't want to get stuck, as all the other teams already have started their rotation.
Man, Independent Violet had all that momentum. Then all of a sudden, now that puts them a big game behind. They didn't really earn much here, as we didn't really get to the placement points just yet. Very tough situation to be in here.
Yeah, look how close the leaderboard is. Going down early, even in a single game at this stage.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, you can't count yourself out, but then that just puts pressure on the big games towards the end of the day, where it's basically all or nothing.
If you're not Kanata and Agers, you don't have room right now to make any mistakes.
And Kanata and Agers, I think they have like maybe a 1 game, 1.5 game cushion. We'll just kind of round up to 2 as you see the feed. Aiden and Hound have just been sent back to the lobby. You mean Epicwell sharing a piece of that pie. Rokane and Vert get a knock. It was the last shot, but it was the one that mattered towards the backside of zone. They get the siphon, and they get 4 points to their total.
Talking about Booga and Threats, the direct competitors right now, the team chasing on the heels of Kanata and Agers. They're big vibing here. They actually pull somewhat of a great zone. It's coming directly behind them. There's not a team near them. They get the first to make the ground rotate here. It's Batman, Booga, and Rapid in the distance, but they're not even looking out. There it is. Comes a little too late. Threats is way quick to put the balls down. He's like, no, nope. I'm not going to take any damage. We don't need to right now.
Yeah, in theory, Booga and Threats, it almost feels like they're just trying to get in, give themselves a nook and a cranny. But when the zone begins to open up, spread out, they're the team that typically goes to that slower side, so that way less and less teams that they have to deal with. And I would hope everybody else does that same thing.
There's a lot of brick here. I'm wondering if they're trying to get to those reservoirs and get their material count back. It's looking pretty tough. Epic Whales out, Clicks by himself, and now completely finished there by Bolt and Thorix. The quick jump into the box sets them up for success right now.
Agers is down in the feed.
Uh-oh.
Haven't seen him get taken out just yet, so you got to imagine Kanata fighting for not only his life, but theirs as well. Quick rotation from Bolt and Thoric. They don't want to be stuck on that edge of zone, and just as we tune in, Kanata again does do a good job saving the day. The only thing that really worries me is their materials and the lack of medium ammo. So for Kanata and Agers, it's almost imperative if they want to keep themselves going to get a refresh, because they're even below the damage threshold. This isn't a position we've seen them in yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say, listen, you need to add another big problem to their list. Is the fact they absolutely have to fight right now. And Agers is obviously coming off that knock here, just getting picked up. So they lost time just off of that. 30 seconds now until the surge turns on. So tags, action, everything does matter here.
That was just enough. They were 22 below. They hit for 26. So in the back of their minds, even though they have the comfortability to rotate, they know that Storm Surge is still going to be there.
Nope, they're not safe at all. Nice little find here to refresh on some of the building material. But it's going to be tough. Here's Pars and Vaca performing the best in the lobby so far. Big 5 eliminations here. Jumping their way back up into the conversation right now. Trying to earn some big money here.
This zone's tough because everybody is already just stuck like glue next to one another, box to box. Some players on top of others. They're just jam-packed like a can of sardines. So you literally have to wait for some players to rotate before you can make your own, which obviously gives those players who rotate first a little bit of advantage to go to that open space that does open up momentarily.
Take a look at the big rotate right now. Everyone's starting to move in and collapse in the new zone.
Nice shots by Kanata, just trying to raise the stakes when it comes to that Storm Surge. Something they don't have to worry about as we continue to move into these later zones. And that's exactly why. It took only 2 steps to try to get to zone and already became a target. Half shield's gone for almost both of these players.
Well, we're in the end game now. This is it. Things are gonna get real dire here. Talk about the medium ammo they need, the material as well. This box fight down low might be the best decision for them here to force the fight, but it's Rise, it's Yamzo, it's Cold, who's also next door. These are tough teams. They don't know, of course, who they're asking to battle with just yet, but there's no easy picks right now on the NA roster. Sphinx falls in the feed there. That's a top 4 team. Cefollo's by himself. Rokate on the other side here, trying to fight up against Rise and Yamzo. Rise and Yamzo really need a big game here. They need to get back up into this conversation as a team who can race the first place.
It looked like they were hunting one team, then they become the hunted by Reet and Ritual. A lot of these teams on the outer edge suffering through the lack of Storm Surge. It's just forcing these fights. Reet goes down. Ritual is stuck between a rock and a hard place. They get sent back to the lobby. Suscript's even going down. This is big. Acorn finds an elimination as well. Baka gets dropped. This is looking like the Wild Wild West.
Pars is now solo here to play this one out by himself here on the high ground. We have Edgy and Duke there playing alongside one another, setting up things for them. Pars has just got to hustle his way on out of here, tries to get to the front. I like this play. It was definitely a desperate one, but it was the best decision for him to go ahead and get a move on it, as now we're finally jumping into that top 15 situation here.
They've woken up from their slumber of day one. Edgy and Trey 5 have the high ground, but you have to watch out. There's so many threats right below, including Miro and Cooper, who just take down Peterbot. That's a big elimination, but they're not going to be able to get the Siphon, the resources, so they have to keep moving forward. For Miro and Cooper, though, this is a good job just staying ahead of the game. You don't want to fall back to the ultimate backside of the zone.
Yeah, they have that big breacher in hand. Puga's in the end game, okay. Putting up the numbers right now. Tries to cut off Clarity, but the shot comes from behind. Their tarp was invaded on, loses threats in the process. Bugha has to hold this one out. The zone's right behind them, just in time for the Stamina to come through, and the Siphon as well, but no, wasn't quick enough to get to the material there. He gets taken out here. Pars now solo targeted. The zone bounces north. He falls as well. Iamzo and Rise are one of the few that are left alive here as a duo that can still do something.
Yep, everybody's dropping like flies. Meanwhile, Iamzo and Rise are just doing the best that they can to stagger themselves back. The shots are continuing fired. Iamzo's not getting greedy, but he drops at the perfect time. Down goes Flutto, but down goes Rise as well. But Iamzo did enough to find that med miss. Now he has a little bit more time as a luxury.
Let's see it. He's going ahead, sit here, buys him a little bit of an opportunity right now. Top 5 is just an elimination away, but Cooper's in his zone. No, both of them know that one another on the other side. Of course, those visual sound effects start to give away that information, but Iamzo's out. He has to make his way. He has to go for the mad dash here. Does start to run out a little bit of stamina. 180 on the player behind him.
Wow.
Gets 2 great tags, but not enough to stay in the game. Meanwhile, Cooper still alive, by the way, with the med miss there. He's on to his last one. This is desperate opportunities now. Clarity G is hurt up top, but so are the 2 players below. All he has to do is hit a massive tag, but no, the low ground comes out. It's Paper, it's Muzz from nowhere injecting themselves into the conversation.
Almost didn't see them except for in the beginning of the game, but that's what you go ahead and call one of them silent plays. You go through unnoticed, almost unscathed. You battle through so much adversity, and you start the day off hot. And this is exactly what you want to see. We saw it on EU with Swizzy, Asian FNCS champion, EU FNCS champion. Muzz wants to do that same thing here.
Well, I am very curious about what happened between Edgy and Duke, who had the high ground, because for Muzz and Paper to take the win, something ridiculous must have exchanged between Clarity G and the other teams that were holding high.
Yeah, and right now is just a huge chance for anybody to try to gather as many points as possible, including Paper and Muzz. But with the first game of the day done, let's take a look at that leaderboard.
Thank you guys so much. As I kind of joked about picking up the pieces from yesterday, looks like NA took that seriously. They're like, hey, yesterday it was chaotic, we were aggressive, we're bringing that in. Game number 7 on day number 2 was the same. It is like we just picked up exactly where we left off yesterday. Muzz and Paper will find themselves the victory royale in this moment. Chaos. One word, it's chaos.
Dude, I don't know what was even going on. So many teams were shambles. So many teams were playing for height when they had nothing to play for. It's like, I have no mats. Let me just go up to height. Then we see, it was Iamzo and Cooper just staring at each other with med miss. Like, who's got the last med miss, bro? I got you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely crazy stuff. There were a couple teams that I had my eye on throughout that game, and one of them honestly wasn't Paper and Muzz, but obviously they proved me wrong in that sense, just dominated on the low ground, and this duo just happened to find a spot down there that they felt like they were comfortable enough to go ahead, post up, found their refresh necessary, but it's going to be about the natural terrain, realizing that there's going to be a hill right there. They build up, they get some early damage on the Clarity G, and you know what? He made a good run at it here, almost clutched up in that 1v2 situation, but ultimately Paper Muzz come out on top.
Yeah, I think for me the storyline is with Agers and Kanata falling kind of early there. This is going to create a moment for the rest of the lobby to try and close that 90-point gap. Let's take a look at our standings together and kind of see what game number 7 created and or left for us. Agers and Kanata there, that gap is close, but not by nearly enough. Like 60 points is still quite a bit of a lead. Booga and Threats, Aegis and Kanata, they're still holding it down there at the top.
They had a solid game, but like these are the little gaps that are going to start to close.
Yep.
We saw they were about 90 points ahead of everybody else that was in second, or the team in second.